longtime radio and television legend Luther Masingill passed away this morning at 6 a.m., the same time the radio man would have normally been going on the air. He was 92 years old. Luther began his career 73 years ago in Chattanooga at WDEF Radio.
And we are joined right now by Brian Smith on the end there from This and That, and James Howard, Sunny 92.3, both longtime friends and co-workers of Luther. James, you actually wrote the book on Luther, or a book on Luther. You write in here that he was your childhood hero and became your very close friend. Can you just describe what that was like to really grow up listening to him and then be so close?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, so many Chattanoogans can say this, that they were eating their bowl of Fruit Loops, you know, around the breakfast room table, and I did that. I was 9 years old when I lost my dog Andy, and I'll never forget. My mom said, she looked me in the eye and she said, "James, everything's going to be okay. I'm going to call Luther, and Luther's going to help you find your dog." And a couple of days later, here we are. We're eating our bowl of cereal, listening to Luther, and Luther's calling Mom. And I remember Mom going, "Shh, shh, 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 it's Luther. Oh, you found Andy. Fantastic." So that's when Luther became more than just a radio voice. Yeah. I fell in love with that man. I'd never met in person until I started working with him when I was 19 years old.
And that feeling shared by so many in our area.
Absolutely.
Luther known by so many for talking about lost pets, and we've heard from many people saying it's like he really cared about my individual dog, even though I didn't know him. And it was that relationship he shared with the public.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And Luther is one of a kind. You know, he's been here for 7 decades. Can you imagine working at the same radio station, same frequency?
I just always would tell people he started before television was really even invented. I mean, we think about black and white and so on and so forth, but you know, to be that legend and be here in the same place for such a long time as well, the complete dedication, and that's what I saw in him as well.
And we spend our day-to-day talking to people in the community about Luther and his life, and we talked to former News Channel 9 anchor Bob Johnson, who's actually inducted into the Tennessee Broadcasting Hall of Fame with Luther. Let's take a listen to what Bob had to say.
He was serving people. If it was lost dogs, that was fine and dandy. If it was news reports on something major going on, that was another thing. But he did it well, and he did it with his usual standards of excellence. He was a professional broadcaster who loved his job and loved the people he worked with and loved the people he served out in the community.
Bob Johnson right there. Brian, can you talk about what Luther was like as a co-worker? What it was like to walk in the building and see Luther every day?
Well, one of the things that I really appreciated, because I had a chance to work with him for just over 8 years, and then, of course, got a chance to see them even when I left the business for a short period of time. But I remember seeing the very first time I had met him, I thought, you know, who is this older gentleman that's on the air, and what he was doing when I was first came here to Chattanooga. But to be able to sit next to him every day during noon, to be able to see him at the station, even at the radio station, is what most people don't get a chance to see with him being a radio legend, is the smile. And you know, sort of what's going on after the air as well. Even to the day when I would do a couple of spots here and there with James, that he would still get up out of his seat, walk over and say hi, say hello, say, you know, and pick on me. He's always got a joke. You know? There's one that, you know, I'm always going to remember when it comes to weather forecasting is, you know, make sure the weekend's going to be great this weekend, because if not, you're through in this town. You know, he would sort of joke on, you know, like that on occasion, but you know, he always had the great jokes, and he always would tell, you know, jokes and how much he loved his first wife, Mary, of course. And I think that, and also you could not keep him away from the job that he loved. When it snowed, Luther, stay home. No, he's going to come in. When he is not feeling good, he's going to come in. That's the dedication, and that's what I take away from someone like him. You know, he worked and did something he wanted to do his entire life, and committed to it, and wanted to keep doing it, wanted to keep coming. I mean, getting up at what, 4 o'clock in the morning for all those years? Who wants to keep doing that? He does. And you know, I look at something like that and say, if I could be just a part of that, just to be able to have that kind of eagerness and that desire in the job that I love, then I think I'll be better. But it's something like what he taught me to be able to do that.
And we heard at 5 o'clock they said Luther would say sometimes, you know, I would do this for free. Don't tell anybody.
Right,
Do
yeah.
it for
Yeah, don't tell
free.
anybody that. but
Yeah,
that's
and
right.
you know, being from separate stations, sometimes people may think that we're all competitors, but Luther would walk in and be your friend and your family, no matter where you were.
Oh,
The
yeah.
first time
Oh,
you
yeah.
met him, that's
Yeah.
just how he was.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, we took phone calls for several hours this morning, and everybody had everybody has a Luther story, but so many people said that Luther, when he met you, it was as if he had known you for your whole life,
Right.
And that's what kind of person he was. So he was just a real, genuine person. I was asked earlier today what Luther taught me, and you know, I've been in broadcasting for 25 years here in Chattanooga, and 21 years of it has been at Sunny 90.3 radio, and it's been working side by side with Luther. And you know, Luther, what he taught me to be a better father. You know, he taught me to be a better husband. He taught me to, when it came to my professional broadcast career, it was so important for him to say, James, it's important for you to be real with your listeners. And he was a real stickler. When the phone rang, make sure it rings no more than two times, because the person you say hello, Sunny 8.3 to, is the person you're going to help, and you're going to make a difference in their life. And that's what kind of man Luther was.
Yeah. Also, I want to hear right now from another longtime competitor of Luther, Ed Freudenberg, stopped by today as well.
I said, are you going to retire? He said, well, I've had some of my family that would like to see me, you know, do a little traveling, but he said, I'm afraid if I sit down, I won't get back up. And he said, I'm going to keep going just as long as I can. And what was so unique was he passed away this morning at 6 o'clock. Well, that's the time that he would normally come on the air. So, you know, I believe that he got promoted to his new job in the sky at 6 o'clock.
Ed Freudenberg right there. James, you told me before we came on that Luther was at work last Wednesday. And Brian talked about how he worked when he didn't feel good and when it snowed.
All
He
the
was
time.
there last week.
Oh yeah, right, exactly.
Still driving.
Yes. Oh, of course, of course. Yeah, he never did take a day off. he did take a day
take
off.
his birthday off.
I think the last time that he, but we always joke the last time he took a day off was like back in the mid '50s.
For war.
So yeah, he was very dedicated to his family, very dedicated to his church, and very dedicated to his community, and he just poured into radio and television.
We
And his
just saw a
listeners.
shot there of someone kissing him on the head. And I understand that was a tradition. Can you explain that? Every time the ratings came out, that
They gave him a kiss on the
somebody gave
head.
him a kiss on the head?
I'm not sure about
Okay.
that.
I believe that was a former WDEF general manager there, always thanking Luther for his contribution.
Oh, yeah?
When you talk about those contributions, reporting on the air, Pearl Harbor when that happened,
Sure,
reporting
right.
on the air when September 11th
Right.
happened, one of the
Exactly.
only people to receive that designation. Such an honor to have him here in
That's
our
right.
community.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. We're so blessed.
Yeah.
We've been so blessed.
Right.
I think it's the calm voice, that friendly
Sure.
demeanor. It's, you know, when there are such big things that are going on, whether it's back then, obviously went around for the Pearl Harbor, but you know, something of a tragedy like that, or him, you know, discussing and talking about even 9/11, that smooth voice, that, you know, he voiced that he coined, I guess, at Central High School back when he used to do announcements there. That trust is there. You know, he's not going to be elevated and scared. He's, you know, it's that sense of everything's going to be okay. You know, we're going to make it from point A to point B, and that's why people turn to him. And you know, it goes much further beyond the dog stories, but that's sort
Right.
of the human aspect of it as well. It can be something very serious, and it can be that calm, soothing voice, but then also that same guy that's going to say, James, it's okay. We're going to find your dog.
Yeah, absolutely.
James, can you take us back? Like you said, you grew up listening to him, and he was your hero, and so you wanted to get in this business, in the broadcasting business. What was it like when you first met him?
You know, that's a great question.
Yeah.
Oh, Josh, I'm glad you asked that question. I will never forget the big old bubble thing. It said it says on air, you know.
Yeah, right.
And I remember sticking my head like I put my head through this window there on South Broad Street, and Luther was holding two kittens. And those kittens were going, meow, meow. And he was like going, oh, sweethearts, talk to me. And these little cats were just meowing. And but I remember looking at that situation and looking at Luther and thinking to myself, that's Luther. Here I am, 19 years old. I had just gotten a job with WTVC radio. And I would just remember going, that's Luther. That's who found my dog when I was 9 years old. That is my hero.
Yeah.
And not knowing that, I mean, he would become my best friend, you know, that would teach me so much in the last 21, 22 years.
James, Brian, we really appreciate you guys coming. I know it's been a very tough day.
Yeah.
I really do appreciate you taking time to come and talk to us today.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you
right.
so much.
Thank you very much.
And for those who want to honor the memory of Luther, you are welcome to attend a public service, a public memorial service for Luther Masingill. Will be Thursday at Ingle Stadium. It begins at 2 p.m.
What do you remember about Luther?
You want me to look at you or just
Look, yeah, look at me.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can tell you that I never saw Luther that he wasn't smiling. He always had a smile on his face for you. When he greet you, come into the room, there was a smile on his face. He was friendly to everybody. Didn't know an enemy, I don't think.
Yeah.
And he was always there with a good quip or a story or something to say funny about something going on in his life. Professionally, he was an icon that will never be matched. He had a big heart, the people that he served, and he served people on radio for all those years, 74 years. He was serving people. If it was lost dogs, that was fine and dandy. If it was news reports on something major going on, that was another thing. But he did it well, and he did it with his usual standards of excellence. He was a professional broadcaster who loved his job and loved the people he worked with and loved the people he served out in the community. And he will greatly be missed forever. No one will fill his shoes. You can't do that.
He had some big shoes when you got here.
Yes, he did.
And they stayed big the whole time. I mean, he was a person to be recognized.
Yes, he was someone you had to overcome if you're going to challenge WDEF radio at the time that he worked with them closely. You had to challenge Luther. Luther was a big guy then. Remained so. I wish I knew of this particular quip or story that would come to mind that I could relate to you, but I can tell you we have a meeting every year, a luncheon every year, twice a year, of the Veterans of Radio Wars, we call it. It's an unofficial title of an organization of colleagues, of people in radio and television, mostly radio. We get together and have lunch. We get together and tell stories. When Luther comes in the room, it's like the prophet has arrived.
Yeah.
And he's greeted with the usual aplomb and honor that he's due. He walks in the room and says something funny, and he cracks the place up, and it's on with the luncheon. But it's something to look forward to when Luther comes to the meetings. He'll be missed this year and years to come. I wish I had his... We're not going anywhere.
If someone desires a career in radio or television, but particularly radio, do you think there's anyone that they could imitate or seek to imitate more than Luther?
They shouldn't try to imitate. They should try to take from his standard of excellence and his standard of service that he set for himself and his colleagues, and learn from that and do what he did. Be devoted to the audience and serving the audience. That's his standard. Serve the audience. Speak distinctly. You notice he always speaks distinctly. He would pronounce his words well. He could understand his message no matter what he was reading or talking about. And he had a style in that it could be followed by anyone.
Sure. Great. Thank you.
Yeah. I can think of something else today. I don't mean to take this lightly, but he had a big following of people who had found lost dogs for him. They're wondering what's going to happen to the lost dogs now. Dog's best friend is missing. Who's going to find him a home? Luther will be sadly missed, but he led a good life for 92 years, I believe it was.
Yep. Yep.
Our thoughts and prayers go to his wife, Mary, and his 2 kids. They're going through what will be a difficult time now. Missing a man who's been there forever. And every day. Devoted husband, father,
Yep.
and professional. Always. I like to consider it. I'm proud.
Okay, so first tell me, how, whenever I hear about Luther, everyone knows Luther and he knows everyone. Why do you think that is?
He's a people person. He never saw a stranger. 2 things he taught me. One of them was the importance of the telephone. And when the phone rings, he would always answer it on the first or second ring. And he treated every caller with respect, whether it was somebody with a lost dog, a burned out family. He treated everyone with respect, and whatever their need was, he would address it. And most of the time got results.
And what do you think made him so approachable and, trying to think of other words people used to describe him, but just such a people person? Just describe him a little bit.
I think he was born that way. My families go way back in North Chattanooga. My family had a store where the new Publix is now. His daddy was a salesman, and he would sell to my grandfather. And Luther was always over there in North Chattanooga, and he was very outgoing. My mother was in the same graduating class with him at Central. And she says, I was just a little mold, but said Luther was out there doing public address work, always, involved in drama or speaking or whatever, He was born that way.
What was your best memory with him?
I guess back in '08 when I was in the hospital, I had a scare with my heart. He came to see me, and no one else was there, and he visited, I guess, 30, 45 minutes, and we just had a good visit talking about radio. He loved to talk about radio, and he knew a lot of people. Fred Waring and Stan Kenton and some of those older artists, why he had met personally. When Jerry Clower would come to town, Jerry would automatically call Luther. I remember one time that Luther talked to him for 30 minutes on the air, and the boss called me, and I was on the control board. He says, you realize we got commercials to play? I said, you talked to Luther about it. Luther told me later, said, don't worry about it, he'll get over it. He was very independent. I mean, he respected management, but Luther was himself. I mean, he did his own thing.
And why was he able to be on the air for so long? What was that thing that made people keep coming back and listening to him?
He's a radio man. He loved radio. I guess several months ago I said, Luther, the anniversary of your time in radio is coming up the end of the year. I said, are you going to retire? He said, well, I've had some of my family that would like to see me, do a little traveling, but he said, I'm afraid if I sit down, I won't get back up. And he said, I'm going to keep going just as long as I can. And what was so unique was he passed away this morning at 6 o'clock. Well, that's the time that he would normally come on the air. So, I believe that he got promoted to his new job in the sky at 6 o'clock.
Wow, that's incredible. I didn't realize it was that time.
Yeah, 6 o'clock. I think that was about the time that he passed away this morning. So, 6 o'clock when I was in the Army at Fort Jackson, I listened to him on the AM station. I could hear him before 6 o'clock. He'd come on a little early, and a little touch of home, People know Luther everywhere. People know Luther all around the world for little things that it is. Very generous person. He played Santa Claus to us at the radio station several times when times were a little hard. And he'd come in and give people $50 bill, $20 or whatever, and say, here, Merry Christmas, keep it under your hat. He's a very generous man. Loved his church. I don't think he's missed half a dozen services in the last 50 years. It used to be Avondale Baptist Church, and now it's Cornerstone. They say on his wedding day that Mary was in the car waiting on him, to go on the honeymoon, and he was walking up and down Wilcox Boulevard shaking hands with all these little old ladies that had come to see him, tell him they loved him. So he really was a people person.
Anything else you wanted to say? That's good.
He'll be missed. He will be missed. I've known a lot of broadcasters, but I've never known anybody quite like Luther. Always concerned. We have a little Tuesday lunch bunch. Go a different place. There's 6, 8, or 10 of us that get together. Always smiling, always happy. He used to kid that he was going to be cremated and have his ashes taken to Hamilton Place because he'd be sure his wife would come to see him several times a day. So, you know, he had a sense of humor.
That's funny. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I appreciate